Stand by. The vacuum tubes are warming up. This is a special live broadcast right here on Georgia Radio.
Well, it's always great when friends stop by, especially folks from up in Kentucky. I'm talking about Cutter Singleton from Cutter and Cash and the Kentucky Grass. How you doing this morning?
Well, I'm doing just fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. You grew up, correct me if I'm wrong, but you grew up with a heavy influence in agriculture up there in Kentucky.
Well, I would say that's definitely right.
Yeah.
You look in any direction, any way, and you've got miles and miles of corn and beans, and there's just no other way about it. That's the way it is up here. And so everybody either has some sort of relationship with somebody that does that, or that's in the coal mines, or that does something to do with horses. And so had a little bit of all of that in our bunch.
Yeah. Well, that's good. But I mean, it's grounded you in, in something that comes from the earth. I mean, you have a real connection to this music that you've grown to love over the years, and you're not very old. You're just kind of getting started in this career. What's your fallback?
That's exactly right.
I love this question, especially for older artists, but I'll ask you, what's the fallback if this singing and playing doesn't work out?
Well, several people have asked me that. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we don't ever have to worry about that. And I think because this is, as far as I'm concerned, all that I ever plan to do. This is what I've got my heart and dreams and mind set up on, and I'm going to make sure that I can do everything in my power to make it happen.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say farming, because I was going to say you better keep going with the music, because it's expensive to be a farmer today.
That's exactly right. And thanks to the people that have already had a successful career that are helping us out there, helping us to make sure we can have a good, firm foundation to build on.
Well, listen, I don't think there's any question in my mind where you guys are headed. I mean, seriously, I think you'll be,
appreciate that.
You'll be like the old guys out there farming just for the fun of it. So I think that's great. That's great. I mean, the Malpas brothers can ride that tractor in the hayfield all they want, but I don't think they're going to be off the bus much longer. I mean, those guys are just blowing up like you and your brother are. How did y'all get started in this? Because seriously, this is something that a lot of young folks are too busy doing other stuff, and the last thing they're thinking about is, Ernest Tubb and all the greats that we all like. How did this come to be, Cutter?
Well, that's a great question. I'll always love telling this story because it's always just so much fun to tell. But I can take you to the exact place. I'll never forget it. And a lot of people can't believe that I can remember it, but I can, just like it was yesterday. I was 4 years old, and I can remember sitting in the back seat of Mom and Dad's car. We were riding around here in Western Kentucky, just Sunday afternoon type drive, And the radio was on, of course, listening to the radio, and the Ballad of Jed Clampett came on, the old Flat Scruggs record that was the theme song to the television show Beverly Hillbillies. And I was struck, and I was changed forever from that moment on. Right there, there was an intervention that happened that day, and I'll never forget it. But I asked Mom, I said, "What is that?" I said, "What's that sound?" She said, "Oh, it's radio." I said, No. I said, "What is that?" And she said, "It's bluegrass." I said, "That's the banjo." I said, "I want the banjo." I said, "I want a banjo for Christmas." And so anyway, I turned 5 a little later in the year. Christmas come around. I took my first lesson on New Year's Day of 2012. And I took it from a gentleman that, I'm telling you, God puts you where you need to be when you need to be there. I'm a firm believer in that. And I was so fortunate to be able to take lessons from this gentleman because he played the dobro for Lester Flatt, traveled and toured, was on records with Lester on the RCA label back in the 70s, and then he played bass for Bill Monroe and also for James Monroe. So he was an experienced musician, as far as professionally, but had old road dog stories and had, he was the real deal.
And you're there just soaking it up at 5.
I was just infatuated. I was just blown away that I was able to get to know this man. And so I started taking banjo lessons from him, and I took for several years. And finally he said, "All right, Cutter," he said, "that's all I can teach you." He said, "We can keep going over stuff, he said, but he said, I can't progress you much further. He said, you're going to have to do it on your own." He said, "But I want to send you to a gentleman," he said, "that lives in Nashville." He said, "I think you learn a whole lot from him." And he said his name's Haskell McCormick. He said, and Haskell played the banjo for Lester for 4 years. Then he went on and said he played for a year with Barty Robbins, touring up and down the road for that 20th Century Drifter album he had in 75 and 76. He's been on records with Johnny Cash, with just all kind of stuff. And Haskell is one of the top banjo players in the world. He's done all kinds of neat things, and it was pretty neat because whenever Earl had the car accident back in 65, he filled in as a 17-year-old kid. He filled in on the Flat and Scruggs show. So it was really neat to be able to learn from him, you know. So we had a great time, and both Jack and Haskell are both still some of my best friends. I really consider them that, but I have learned so much from them, of course. But backing up a little bit, Cash started tagging along about 3 years after I did. He realized that, hang on a minute, I'm having to go to some of these places anyway and sit out in the crowd, and he's getting all the attention. So why can't I be up there?
Well, I was going to ask, did you have a talk with him and say, look, little brother, I don't care if you don't like the banjo, but you've got to play the mandolin because I need a mandolin player. You know, the Leuven brothers,
Actually, it was the guitar.
The guitar is what he started on.
The guitar is what he started with, because I'm telling you what, and I'm still this way today, but we were Flat and Scruggs all over. That was all I ever cared about. That was it. Flat and Scruggs, Lester Flat and Earl Scruggs. That's all we would do in our set was Flat and Scruggs music. That was it. And so, you know, eventually you grow out of things like that and you realize, okay, I've got to spread our horizon here a little bit, and, you know, in order to make this thing work, you know, we've got to focus on all kinds of music. I still love Flat Scruggs just as much as I did on that first time I heard him. I'm telling you, I'm the biggest Lester Flat fan in the world. I love the way he talks, the sings, and the MC work he does. And, you know, I've learned so much from watching those old Martha White shows. But anyway, Cash come on with the guitar singing, and I didn't do any of the singing, actually. And then about, I guess it's been 5 years ago or so, we decided to do a little bit of a changing up thing, and found it worked better for our singing because we've realized that we could sing together and had a good blend, you know, just as far as us listening around and to what other people had told us that it might work better to be something different, you know, have a good brother bluegrass act. And so we decided for me to put the banjo down, you know, and I still play it occasionally, you know, and on stage even too, but to play the guitar and Cash pick up the mandolin and focus on the singing thing. And I love doing that because
when Cash starts to sing, I got to tell you, he's like a golfer walking up to the tee. More like maybe not even a regular golfer, but you know, one of those guys in the long drive challenge. You can see it. His eyes kind of focus, and then it's like he attacks that microphone when he walks up.
There it is.
Where did all that sound come from? You know, it's incredible.
I don't have no idea where it comes from, but he has always had a set of pipes like that.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, he walks up there and opens that mouth, and them notes, just those big notes. They are big notes.
Right.
And they're way up there. They're high notes, you know, and he's got a great, it's you know, in bluegrass, you kind of strive for a high lonesome sound, but it's not really a high lonesome sound. And I know that's a strange thing. It's just a Cash sound.
Yeah.
And I love hearing him sing those old waltz tunes. And one of my favorite songs he does is the old Tammy Wynette song, Till I Can Make It On My Own. And oh my gosh, he can just lay it out like there's no tomorrow, and he's never singing it again, you know, and then he gets right back up there the next week and does again, you know.
Which it takes on a whole new meaning from a guy his
That's
age.
exactly right.
You know, I love that. Well, I got to ask this because growing up, where you're growing up there in Kentucky, did your friends relate to this, or do they look at you like you're an alien and go, what?
Well,
what in the world? They got to be proud of you. I mean, I grew up in a small town too. I can only imagine they're just thrilled to death with what you're doing. But how are they? How are they taking this?
As far as bluegrass in Western Kentucky, you know, a lot of people think, immediately, whenever you say Western Kentucky, they think, and you tell them you play music, everybody automatically thinks you think you play bluegrass music. But to be very honest with you, we're the only bluegrass pickers for a good 75, 80 miles. Yeah. There's nobody anywhere near us that plays.
It's all heavy metal
music, or even it's all kind of stuff. And there's good country pickers, and there's good, you know, old front porch pickers, and a lot of older gentlemen that still play around here, and they're great to play with. But there's nobody sitting on the front porch anymore playing the old fiddles and mandolins and banjos and stuff like that. It's those days are gone. And so bluegrass is as much foreign here than probably anywhere else, as crazy as that sounds. And there's more bluegrass festivals that we work outside of the state of Kentucky than there is whenever they're in. It's really kind of a strange thing. But I'm so proud to come from Kentucky, where that music originated. I mean, it's a world's music now, but this is kind of where it was spearheaded and pushed, promotion wise.
Yeah, well, I get that.
The school that was always very interesting, but of course it was always strange, But it's kind of neat because they grew up with me playing the banjo. I walked in kindergarten the first day, said, "Hi, I'm Cutter Singleton. I play the banjo." That was it. Then they just knew that, and so they didn't find it as strange as I guess some other people did. But I didn't care. This is what I love. This is what I wanted to make sure happened. But everybody has been so kind and so supportive. I mean, of course, they think it's a little weird, and they do that. I do things different than what they do. Listen to other things is what they do. But at the end of the day, they have a great appreciation and are very proud to be associated with that music in that sense, and support everything that we do. It's really, really neat how our school system has just jumped right in there, from kids and students and teachers and all the way up to the superintendent. A couple of weeks ago, we worked a show with Rhonda Vincent. I looked out into the crowd there, and about 5 rows back was our superintendent. She drove 3.5 hours to come down here to see us.
Isn't that great? Oh, that's wonderful.
It's just wonderful.
I want to talk about your commencement ceremony too in just a second. We got to set that up. But I want to go back to this question. I deliberately asked you that question because I wanted to share this story with you, because I think it's important. When I asked you that question at the very beginning, what would your backup plan be? One of the best answers that I've ever heard was Jimmy Fortune. And he said, never even missed a beat. He said, well, I'd have been a race car driver. So we got to come up with something for you that it might not necessarily be true, but we got
a race car driver.
I was going to be a juggler. I had a real career lined up at it. So we got to come up with something, Cutter. So you and Cash, you and Cash got to figure that out. But let's talk about this. Your relationship with Jeannie Seeley has been truly, I would just imagine, life-changing.
Oh, that's understatement right there. I'm telling you. It's unbelievable that I can pick up my phone at any time of the day and night, and I can call a Grammy Award winner, a CMA Award winner, 57-year member of the Grand Ole Opry, and world record for the most appearances in history on the Grand Ole Opry. I can pick my phone up at any time of the day and call her, and we will have the best conversation in the world. I talk to her at least twice a day, every day.
Well, that's great.
And it's unbelievable. And then we talk, of course, a lot about music because that's what we do. I mean, we work together professionally. We really do. But half the time we're talking about all these azaleas that I've got out here. I think we need to move those across the yard. What are you doing next Wednesday? Whenever you're coming down here for that radio interview, after you all get done, can you stop in on your way out of town and we'll move those across the yard?
Right.
You're never going to believe what I found today. I was up in the attic, and it's just that sort of stuff all the time. I love it. I love talking to her, and I love being around her. It's just great.
Well, with those windows, I mean, she is really, and I think I can say this, she is such a living bridge back to all of these people that you have known and grown to admire.
And she's a great connection for us. And she is helping us out so much. And I love her ideas. She comes up with the greatest ideas. It's just unbelievable, the stuff that she just rolls right out. I'm blown away every time I'm around her. It's the whole starstruck thing right over again. It really is unbelievable that we've been able to make that connection. But that came from Rhonda Vincent was being inducted into the Opry. And so we went down there to the Ernest Tubb Midnight Jamboree. She was hosting the show, and her and Jeannie had a single out not too long before that entitled "I'm All Through Crying Over You," which is a great song. And I thought, I bet they're there. I bet Jeannie's there promoting that song, and I bet they do it. And so we went down, of course, with intentions of supporting Rhonda because Rhonda had already befriended us. She was, already just supporting everything we were doing and still does. And so I went down there to see her, and be there for that because I wanted to be there a part of that. That was a big deal for bluegrass and for country music too. And sure enough, she walked right out on the stage, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, there she is. This is country music gold right here. Here she is, royalty." And we're getting to sit here and watch her, and I've always wanted to meet her. And so whenever she got done, I told Cash, I said, we don't have a choice. I said, we're going outside. I said, and we're going to wait. I said, because there's a possibility she's going to come right out that front door and go right out to the car. I said, well, I don't know if she is or not. I said, well, we're going to go wait and try. And sure enough, right there she came. I said, Miss Seeley, I said, can I get her picture taken with you? And she said, oh, sure. She said, are you boys musicians? And I thought, oh, my gosh, how cool is this, So we got our picture. We talked about several places we were working at that time, and a whole lot of those dates were taking place at the Lincoln Jamboree, a little country music theater style show up in Hodgenville, Kentucky. And so anyway, it worked out where that show wound up booking her, and we were able to open the show. And so we began to talk, more on a professional level, and she watched our show, and it just kind of clicked ever since. We swapped phone numbers, and she started talking to us about songs and said, come on down to Nashville and see us at the river there, and just unbelievable stuff.
And I need some help with these azaleas.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm so thankful to have you on and to hear your story. I just hope you come back when you're playing in Georgia. You were down here with Jeannie Seeley and with another great. I'll let you tell the story.
Oh, this was so much fun. We were down there with of course, the wonderful producer and our manager, Jeannie Seeley, Charlie McCoy, which is a Country Music Hall of Fame member, been on. If you turn on the radio any country or station, you're going to hear Charlie within the first 5 or 10 minutes of the listen to the radio, and then whispering Bill Anderson. Right. I mean,
a native
what a
Georgian
great show. Yes, and I looked at that show lineup. Bill called us and asked us to come on the show, and I said, "Well, Bill, did you think we was going to tell you no?" But there's 2 Country Music Hall of Fame members. All 3 are Grand Ole Opry legends. And here's us, Little Cutter and Cash, and all of those greats that have, they're just greats. They are legends in this country music. And so what an honor it was to be a part of that there at his hometown City Lights Festival in Commerce, Georgia. That was so much fun.
Yeah. Well, it's just great. And, I'm not going to get into the whole Hall of Fame thing because I'm going to volunteer to build a new one right here and make her the lead member. I don't understand that for the life of me. But
I don't either. I tell you what, I pray so hard that she gets in there, and I believe she will. I pray it sooner rather than later, though. I'll tell you that much, because if anybody's deserving, it's her.
Amen.
She's done so much that's not on the stage that a lot of people, I guess, look over. But she's done so much for all kinds of other artists and making sure that country music's around for a long time. And as a great entertainer on the stage.
I'll tell you what, she's the only. I went to the Opry that night we saw you, and I was so thrilled to get to see her walk out there on that stage. It was truly a moment I'll never forget. I want to tell you, and I mean this very sincerely. I have a lot of hope when I talk to you, and I really still pick up on this, and it's hope that, because for me, listening to you today and seeing the way you're going about this, there is hope in an old way, and don't take this the wrong way, but for me, in broadcasting and in country music and in bluegrass music, the playbook has been written. I mean, this is 100-year-old craft, plus 100-year-old craft now in the broadcast world. But you guys have embodied this old way of promoting and of getting out there and doing it right. And I think it's just wonderful that it still works. I mean, you're pulling on all this stuff. You're not that you couldn't be, but you're not a 150 million TikTok sensation. You're out there doing it the right way. and you're doing
Well,
it
I appreciate
the
that.
old way. And not that the new way's not right too. Don't let me. I'm going to get hate mail
Sure,
now, but
sure.
but here's a young guy who finds a whole lot of value and I think a great career coming ahead.
Well, I
doing it the
appreciate
old
that.
way.
And I find value, of course, in our music and the way I feel about it and the passion that I have for it. But getting to know people, and I think that's where you build the real connection. Just like you, here I am talking on your radio station, and I appreciate that so much. But getting to talk to people that come to see you, and that's so much fun. Getting to have a conversation with somebody that enjoyed your music, and then by talking to them, hopefully they'll come back and see you again. But I love getting to talk to those people and build a relationship with people that appreciate what you do. And I think by doing that, promoting yourself in other ways, you don't get that as much as just getting right out in the field and going to talk to people after the show. And that's still one of my very favorite things to do in anything I do in life. I love getting to talk to people.
Well, I'm glad you got to talk to us for a little while. We're going to play your new single, which is a great take on an old classic, and I think it just speaks for itself. If folks want to download it, I know that helps, but we got to talk about a little bit of the new stuff. You need some help with people saving this to their favorite playlist. I'm guessing that helps too.
Well, sure. Anything you do to it, listen to it, purchase it, send it to your friend, anything you want to do would sure help us out a lot. And we're fixing to add a whole bunch of new music on there. But another little teaser we're going to drop. We're going to be adding a full new album. We're fixing to be releasing that. That'll be on there for download before too long, too. Fixing to go in the studio and finish that up.
You better talk to your manager about that
that's
before
right.
you release it. You have her call us. We'd love to talk to her, too. So that's great.
Well, that's right. I'm sure she would, too. I'm sure she'd come on anytime.
Well, no, we're just so proud of you.
This new album fixing to come out, so be looking for that, too.
Listen, Cutter, thanks for coming on, and I hope you're not a stranger.
Well, I appreciate that. Holler at us anytime. We really do thank the world of you all. Thank you so much.
Let's play it right now. A little Mamas, Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up and Be Cowboys from Cutter Singleton, and along with his brother and the whole group there, the Kentucky Grass. Here's Cutter and Cash.
Georgia Radio. Good company and great country.